Dr. Mark Changizi here with your Science Moment. Today I wanted to talk about another feature about masks. Now, before talking about masks, let's talk about the KKK. And what I'm really interested about the KKK here is that they wear these masks, these hats, or whatever, I can't remember what they're called, so you can't recognize who they are. And of course, one reason that they do it is because they're involved in illegal behavior, so they really have to keep themselves, their identities secret, otherwise they would get caught by the police. But the other reason that it works for sort of an evil organization like this, and whether they did it on purpose or just ends up working this way, is that because you don't see their faces, as we talked about in moment 75, instead your brain perceptually completes the head and the face underneath it as some kind of generic average human face. So if you could actually see their faces, you would say, oh, those are all dorks and their hair is all funny, and you can stereotype them as a bunch of folks. And it wouldn't necessarily spread in your brain to thinking that everybody in my community could potentially be behind that group or supporting that group. But when your brain can't do that, and it just creates all of these average mannequin-like faces underneath all of those hoods, well, now it's a little bit scarier. It's almost oppressive. Like, well, that could be anybody. It could be Doug or Susie. Or in fact, it's just this average person in your society is what they look like. They just look like average folks, which is typically pretty good folks. That's what your brain perceptually completes. That's just what it automatically does. Masks, although again, not on purpose, create that same thing. There's this oppressive, nightmarish sense when you see a crowd of folks with masks on. Again, you're not seeing people with unique identities. You're seeing a crowd of average, normal, generic, non-identity filled people in your community. And that makes you feel like you're losing. The regular folk, what it is to be an average human, in fact, they're all just average faces, mannequin faces, is to believe that masks should always be worn, blah, blah, blah. It feels like that side is all around you. That's an illusion. And I want you to try to undo that illusion by realizing that you have it. Now, before I leave this moment, I did want to plug a book by one of the folks that's been fighting this is Ian Miller, fighting the mask mandates, and he has a new book called Unmasked. I recommend you getting it. It's been very good at looking at. It's also about the functionality of masks themselves, but more specifically, he's focusing on mask mandates in nearby areas. Let's say you've got the same exact case curves, but one had a mask mandate, one wasn't, and over again, you find there's these very peculiar case curves, but there's no difference on the basis of whether it mask mandates or not. So I recommend you go get this, Ian Miller, Unmasked. And that was your Science Moment.